So, Peter, I think it's a great session on where we stand in AI. Just for everyone here, we roughly at the same time built Applied AI and Silo AI 2017 with the goal of kind of doing something from Europe. And now when we look at where we are in 2026, the motto of DLD, I think, is perfect. It's going to be wild. In AI, it's extremely interesting what's happening at the moment. It's like really going in various directions. If we read the news on the dystopian side, on the utopian side, it's quite interesting. But before we talk about that, let's look a little bit in the past, because what we heard also in the intro, you built Silo, and you did actually the largest kind of exit to AMD. AMD bought you a couple of years ago. How was that feeling for you when you kind of saw that something out coming from Europe is actually competitive at that global level, and to really have that meaningful now collaboration with AMD?
Yeah, that's a broad question, but it's an honor to be here with you. And as you alluded to, we've partnered along the way and built an AI company in Europe. So I think what's worth noting is that like Applied AI, also Silo AI was founded before this current wave. If you look at AI companies today, not many were founded before, say, even 2022 or 2020. So the reality is that most AI companies that were founded before this current AI wave have disappeared for one or another reason. And I would say that the environment to build an AI company was actually quite challenging at the time. And the path that we took was certainly different to the path that many AI companies take today. So we bootstrapped the company. We did not raise any capital. We set it up as an R&D lab. Majority of the employees were PhDs. Eventually grew to more than 300 AI scientists, majority PhDs, and took in first external capital in 2022. But at the same time before that, we obviously had to sort of find spots in the market where AI actually creates value. And given that both technology and the market had low maturity, that wasn't the easiest task. And then, of course, when you look at sort of where we were at the time when, say, the ChatGPT moment happened, Silo was fairly well positioned to grow, to build out our own platform, to build open source models specifically targeting European languages. And then, yes, as you indicated, we were acquired by AMD. We were the first company to prove throughput scaling on AMD GPUs. And that's kind of where we are today. So basically, Silo is AMD's global AI lab. We're still European, so we're headquartered in Europe, in Helsinki. We help companies across the world, OpenAI, Meta, Microsoft, X.AI, and many others, build state-of-the-art models on AMD compute platforms. And then, of course, the platform we built is the enterprise AI suite, so the enterprise layer of AMD's compute platform. So obviously, I think that shows that you can build an AI company out of Europe.
And you did that. So, I mean, we both have that goal of keeping Europe in the game, of really building AI to do something positive, to shape a world that we also desire to live in. So let's look at the positive sides of what we can build with AI. Do you have some examples now with your work within AMD, or before that only in Silo, where you really created something with very positive impact in your work?
Yeah, I think, if you take a few steps back and ask the question, why did sort of most AI companies fail in 2017 or at that time? I think ultimately it's not really an AI question, it's a product question. And the way I've always looked at sort of how AI creates value is as part of a product. And that was also sort of the reason why, I mean, to be entirely honest, we obviously, as most companies, did not really know what we were doing in the beginning. But after a year or two, we sort of narrowed down and doubled down on specific segments. Self-driving and sort of autonomy-related topics were the first focus areas. And Silo grew as part of that segment with German car manufacturers, Asian car manufacturers, North American car manufacturers as our customers. And then sort of moved from one segment to another. But I think it's really about sort of the maturity of the technology for a specific segment and product. And where the largest R&D investments have happened, that has always been where it's being productized. And now the past, say, 2-3 years has been obviously around LLMs and opportunities in embedding those into products. And I think if you look into the future, again, I think that's just going to continue happening. And in the same way as transformers are now empowering chatbots, transformers are also empowering products and processes in life sciences, in automotive, in gaming, and so forth.
But I mean, that again is quite broad from kind of looking at all the different fields. And we see that in kind of the latest benchmarks like GDP, while looking at all major industries in the US, or the iceberg index from MIT, also looking at all professions, all wages, and the impact on AI is substantial in all fields. Like 1.2 trillion wages in the US at risk through AI. More or less half of the jobs and the tasks in these jobs in kind of all major professions that are knowledge related can be substituted by current AI systems. So there is something that is really, really applicable for all things. But looking at startups, looking at research, what is it where you think that's really worth looking at, really worth pursuing, because that has a major positive impact?
I think I would agree with that. It has an impact on every single industry, and in various ways and to various degrees. But the difference really comes from who's building and who's buying, who's basically applying existing models, which obviously has an impact on your business. Usually it's giving you efficiency, it's cutting costs, giving you productivity, and so forth. But then for certain industries, it's transforming the industry in the way where you're basically building own technology. And usually that's sort of a revenue investment. That implies that you're building more competitive products. And that's a totally different way of transforming your industry. And I think that's really the key question that we should be asking also in Europe. And now when you were sort of asking which are the industries, I do think there are certain limitations in where we are today, where we have a sort of competitive edge. There are certain industries where we should be the ones building, not just applying existing models. We have some of the world's largest, say, life science companies, some of the world's largest automotive companies, some of the world's largest gaming companies. All these industries are being transformed by models today. And the question to me really there is, are European companies the ones that are building these models, or are they the ones that are applying existing models?
Are they?
Well, that is the question. I mean, I think we have to ensure that we succeed in being the ones building models. I think we can, all the way from the Draghi report a few years back, we've been complaining that Europe doesn't have the tech platforms and so forth. That's kind of true. And you really need distribution to succeed. We have the capability to build models in Europe. But then we actually have platforms, industrial platforms. And I think that's where the question is, are we bold enough to invest in order to ensure that we tap into the, say, life science, automotive, and gaming platforms that Europe currently has?
Mm-hmm. Now, coming from that kind of more kind of broad assessment to you personally, I mean, you you built up Silo AI, you sold it, you were still the owner. Now, you're really impressive, and next to AMD, you also have a foundation, you invest, you're an entrepreneur at heart. So where are you focusing on with your time, with your activities, now also outside of the AMD life?
Yeah, I mean, I do my tiny bit. There's a lot of people contributing to Europe and AI activities in the region. I mean, what I believe is important is that we're successful in building strong ecosystems, and you know, if we look back, that's how Silicon Valley happened. A strong academic cluster in Stanford, and then basically large and eventually sort of a large number of smaller companies around that. That's what has happened in Paris during the past few years, where, say, Google and Meta and OpenAI and many others have opened up their R&D centers around an academic cluster. And now we're seeing AI companies being set up there. That's what's happening in Zurich at the moment, and that's also what's happening in different parts of Germany today. And I think it's just extremely important that we're pushing on all fronts. And the activities that I've been trying to contribute to are basically trying to ensure that we in the Nordics have a sort of sizable concentration of academic talent through the second Ellis Institute in Europe. So the first one was in Tübingen, the second one in Finland. And then, of course, that we would have large-scale AI initiatives. AMD and Silo is obviously contributing to that, and the fact that there would be a vibrant tech ecosystem, and especially startup ecosystem, is important as well. But I mean, one person can do only so much. I do think we're seeing a lot of European entrepreneurs giving back today, which is extremely important for us to succeed.
I mean, that's your Finnish personality. I think to be fair, also here in that field, you are one of the most important players in AI, at least in the Nordics, but also in Europe. So maybe can you give us maybe some examples on the research side, on the entrepreneurship side, what you are actually doing? Because I think that it is really meaningful also for what's happening in Europe.
Yeah, I mean, I really think that what I said about ecosystems is powerful to the extent that if we don't succeed in building sort of sizable concentration of activities, we will fail. And Europe, as we know, is extremely fragmented. We cannot have sort of an AI hub in every single city in Europe. We have to concentrate and ensure that we have world-class initiatives. The most talented people want to work with the most talented people on the most challenging problems. We need to have moonshots, and you know, that is really what I think, you know, we need in Europe. We need moonshots, and we need ambitious entrepreneurs that are willing to sort of push forward. If I can do anything to support and help that, and then ultimately, I mean, if we look at what is happening today, we talk about AI, yes, but I mean, it's really a software revolution. Anyone here can set up a company and provide a 10x type of user experience with sort of, I would call a feature, and build an AI company with that. And we can see and I don't want to downplay the efforts that are happening, but that's kind of how I've seen Lovable happen, Legora happen, and so many other AI companies. You know, so we have a revolution at our hands in Europe, and everyone here can innovate without having access to billions to build their own models. And that's one thing. And then the other thing is really that the world has tapped into the modalities, specifically focusing on language. There are many other modalities out there still. I mean, we're seeing innovation happening in life sciences, in material sciences, in, say, visual media, gaming, entertainment, in automotive, robotics, and so forth. And I think we all and Europe can play a role in leading and driving those industries.
I think that's coming now, as we are always already at the end of our time. Just again, looking at Europe, I mean, we look so much at the US and we know what's happening there. So rather than just focusing on a catch up to the US, talking about Europe, what do we need to do now? So you talked a little bit about the directions, but are there any things where we all here in that room, but also overall in Europe, where we need to decide, where we need to say, okay, that's the direction where I go to? What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, if we just very quickly, two things. One, in order to ensure that this environment is the best environment in the world for the best entrepreneurs in the world, I believe we really need to focus on ensuring that we're building a strong single market. And people tend to sort of say that it's important for many reasons, but it's for obvious reasons important, because even though you would be able to attract the talent, attract the capital, attract the compute, or whatever is the ingredient to build this sizable company, eventually you need to deliver on promises, and that's by scaling your company. And if we don't have an environment where you can do that from one country to another, and we would have a powerful sort of single market, then eventually you as an entrepreneur will do it elsewhere. And then the second part, really, where I think everyone can contribute to that, is that we simply need more ambition. The initiatives that we set up should not be the whatever largest Finnish company or largest German company. We should build global leaders, and I think we can build global leaders. So raise the bar and build with more ambition. And
that's definitely what we need in Europe. Thank you so much for that very short and quick conversation. We could go on forever, but really happy to have you here, really happy to have you also in Europe to be so active in that field of AI. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.